I've done a bit more, reducing the tips in thickness a tiny bit off the width, but not much. I haven't filled any of these waggly knots or anything, or done anything about this, but I have noticed that looking at it, we're a lot thinner this side than we are that side. What obviously happened there is, as I ran it through on the bandsaw, this was the side I was looking at, but because there's a bit of a dip in the back there, it's made it rather thin there. So I've put L for leave on there to make sure I don't touch it. And maybe I'll need to build that up, I doubt it, but I may need to fill that groove. But I'm not going to do it now. What I want to do is leave everything alone, because I intend to probably heat treat the belly of this, as it's going to be a flight bow. And you can't use epoxy glue and then heat treat something because it ruins the glue. So what I've got to do is get it virtually tillered, then heat treat it, then do any filling, then do the final tillering. You can see how I've chamfered the belly a bit more, taken a bit more off. You can see how it's sort of following the grain there. But this side I'm probably going to have to reduce the sapwood, else I'll be in danger of ending up with no heartwood at all. This is the second time on the tiller, and I'm keeping a running tally of how many times it goes up on there, so you'll get an idea. I think I've got it round the other way this time, and you'll see this side of this limb, the sapwood's quite a lot thicker. I have reduced the outer limbs a fair bit, so that should be bending a little bit better, but I don't expect it to be anywhere near right yet, but I may pull it back a bit closer to 80 pounds this time. And we may see some more bark popping off. Yeah, it's certainly coming around a bit nicer. Yeah, you hear a bit more bark pinging off there. Yeah, it looks very fat on that left limb, but some of that is twist. You can see on the right limb, you can see bark where it's twisted towards us. On the left limb, it's twisting away from us, so we're seeing a bit of belly as well. There, so I just about got to 80 pound there, so I'm almost pulling the full target weight. There's a slightly thin patch here which shows up more on the other side. I don't know if you can see that. I've marked L for leave, but that's where that nasty groove is. Right, this is the tip where the sapwood was rather thick, especially on one side. So this was the thick side. So I've actually done what lots of people tell you you're not supposed to do, and I've been removing sapwood, and I'm obviously going to have to cut through growth rings, because at the other end the sapwood is a nice thickness. You can see how fine the grain is, hopefully, and I'm following the curve of the grain pretty much, and this is where I've sort of stepped up back to the natural back of the bow. Now I could carry that along to sort of here, we're up to a nice normal thickness, but it's a matter of degree. What I'll do is you can see we're very flat here. I'll perhaps round this back in a little bit and gradually feather it out until it meets this area where I've come down, you know, let's think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 growth rings. But you can see here I've exposed a continuous layer, and all this has just been done with a draw knife, so you can work quite delicately, and you can see here, hopefully 1, 2, 3, 4. I've gone through about 4 rings, 4 or 5 here. Again, I've left there's a little bit showing here, but this can be cleaned up and meticulously followed to a growth ring if I want. But we're still at the sort of roughing stages. I'm just trying to get rid of some of the sapwood so that I don't run out of heartwood on the belly. I'm just trying to get these tips moving a bit more. In fact, you can sort of see it's beginning to get flexible. So I've got a bit of a bulge here now, so I'll just feather out this upper edge a bit more. Don't know if I can do that one-handed whilst working with the draw knife. That'll be interesting, won't it? So here we are, one-handed draw knife work for beginners. So you can see, even with one hand, a sharp draw knife, you can be quite delicate. Just gives you a sort of idea. Again, it shows if you slice at an angle. What I might do, and later on I might set the tripod up so you can see me working. The other thing is you can use a draw knife edge on like a scraper. Difficult with one hand, obviously. I'm just trying to illustrate the point. That'll do. Comes out big fat bulge at the minute. I'll feather that in a little bit more. Yeah, just done a little bit more work there, blending that in. That's a more even looking thickness of sapwood. So what you're after is an even layer. It doesn't necessarily have to follow a ring. I mean, following a ring is nice, but it's not essential. But you can see where I have taken some off this edge, the growth rings where I've cut through them, or violated as some people would say, they're running parallel to the length of the bow. So there's no weak point across the bow. I haven't just sort of stepped down chonk. I've blended it in gracefully. Of course, if you're using Osage, it's a different kettle of fish. The back of the bow has to be a continuous ring because the layers between the rings are like chalk, and if you step through it will just split across. You know, you can split down a growth ring on Osage. You just give it a hard stare and it will split. Right, let's pop that back up on the tiller.
Couple of things to note. First, I've marked the arrow pass because I've decided this is going to be the upper limb. That's a bit with the funny dark and bit of rot or what have you in there, the little feature. I've taken some sapwood off this side, off the back, because it was very thick here. I'm still following the curve of this little ripple. So that's mostly what I've done. I've tidied up the other end a little bit, but I expect to see this end moving a little bit more. See what it does. Third time on the tour, and this is only probably about 15 minutes after the last bit of video. Looking a bit stiff left side of the grip, or to put it another way, a little bit weak right side of the grip. All in all, it looks like it's beginning to move okay. It's deceptive because it looks fat. It looks very fat here, but the bow is actually, you're not looking at it like that. It's actually got some twist on it, so you're seeing more of the belly there. So you have to be careful. If I run the fingers along it, yeah, it's a little fat there, perhaps. Thin point there, there's a very thin section there. Worryingly thin, really. But I've learned from experience that, you know, if I'm worried by it, it'll probably be alright. It's only if I'm absolutely scared stiff is a problem. Yeah, I can feeling along, I can feel it getting thinner. The taper's quite nice, bit fat there, a little bit chubby here still. That's a lot thinner now I've done something to sapwood. It's getting better, it just doesn't look quite right yet, obviously. But slow and steady. What I need to do, what I haven't done is I haven't reviewed the video to see how far it was pulling back. I mean, I can pull it again to have a look. I've just realised I wasn't pulling it to 80, I've been pulling it to 70, which is fine. I don't want to overstress it at the minute. The big blobs on the scale are, you know, every 50.
and then the black line's every 10, so that's 70. So that's 70 at 20. So I'll do my arithmetic. So 70 divided by 20, 3.5 pounds per inch, times 27 equals 94.5 pounds. So I'm aiming for 80. I'm a bit close. I'm about 95. So I've only got 15 pounds to play with, but experience tells me how much wood that is to come off. So I think I'm on track, and if I heat treat it, it'll be all right. I've obviously cut it pretty tight on the bandsaw in the first place, but that's what experience does for you, hopefully. Right, I've taken some more off this lower limb where it was a bit chubby there, a bit more off the tips too. I've tightened the string. I'll give it another turn through my magic ring of alley there. I'm leaving this section where this bit of rot or split or whatever is, I'm leaving that quite wide and square in case I need to add a patch on it. Other thing I've noticed is my scale was slightly, it wasn't zeroed properly, so it was reading a bit high. And the dilemma is, if this was a much bigger, chunkier stave with plenty of spare length, I'd pull it straight back to full target weight, no problem. But because it's going to be fairly highly stressed because it's relatively short, and it's going to be a flight bow, and it's got this weak point in it, and it's got some pin knots that haven't been filled, that's why I'm not heaving it straight back to full draw weight immediately. Because if I want to heat treat it, I can't do any glue work early on. So anyway, I've got it a bit higher braced. I can probably pull it to 80 now, but I'll have a look. And if I feel we're like 3/4 of the way there, I'll probably heat treat it, then carry on with the rest of the work. So let's have a look anyway. Fourth time on the tiller. Now I'm pulling it more in line with the arrow pass now. You can see she's coming over. I don't know, I feel like I'm meant to pull really hard and it's a bit stressy. Something went pop. I mean, last time I did look at the video and I held a little circular coaster up in front of the screen and I could see it was bending nicely. There's me 60. There's 70. So it's working quite hard, isn't it? I mean, and that left limb's certainly bending more. I can hear a few cracks and pops. That right tip looks like it's really twisting over towards us. So if I let it down and we keep an eye on that as it goes down, I'll try and see. No, it doesn't seem to, the twist doesn't seem to be getting any worse. But obviously I've got to keep an eye on it. I probably won't bother trying to untwist it with heat. I'll just leave the damn thing alone till what it is. You can watch it like actually move. That's the beauty of a dynamic tiller rather than static. You can, I think it shows that weak point more. I think you see it sort of flexing there, up and down, you know, concave, convex. That's why I might not pull it too much harder. She's still looking a bit heavy on that left limb, but you want the lower limb to be stiffer. Now I've had that that's a good 70. So perhaps a little bit more on that left limb. Have a look at that right tip. Try and see how that's bending. Then maybe think about heat treating it. That might do for today, although it's only 11:30. So I don't know, is it? She still looks a bit stiff round here.
So I'll probably take that down a bit more. But that's quite encouraging. There, that's a good 75. You can't really accuse me of underdrawing it too much now. It didn't go bang, which is always a result.